My guest tonight is the acclaimed jazz and cabaret singer Barb Jungr, who is calling in from Germany this evening to promote her latest album, which is called Come Together, an arrangement of Beatles songs, working with the acclaimed arranger and pianist John McDaniel. Good evening, Barb. Thanks very much for joining us this evening.
Good evening, Jason. It's a pleasure.
Now, exciting news is you're going to be performing at Faversham at the Assembly Rooms this coming Thursday, and that's literally 15 minutes down the road from where we are here.
That's completely sold out.
Is it completely sold out? Wow.
That's completely sold out, but there are still some tickets in deal.
Aha, because you're on the 19th of November, you're going to be at the Astor Theatre.
In Deal, and that's the place to come to because we'll be there with their beautiful grand piano on Saturday night.
So we're going to talk about the show in a second, and also we're going to work our way through some of the songs from the album. We're going to play 3 songs in total.
Okay.
But to start with, I just wanted to focus a little bit on you, because you were born in Rochdale in the 50s, and so I guess when you were growing up into nearly a teenager, the Beatles were just really breaking through.
That's exactly right. Actually, they were breaking through. I was quite young when they were breaking through. So it was very exciting. It was a very exciting time. And it was particularly exciting if you came from the north, because for the first time, our people were worldwide famous, you know, and that was just tremendous.
And were the Beatles a group you were interested in growing up?
Oh gosh, yes, because I was I loved music from being tiny. When I was a little girl, my dad said he used to sit me on his knee on the bus, and I would start singing, and he'd say, "Please shut up." He said, and you would just carry on singing. I couldn't stop you. and I could sing everything from the radio when I was 3 years old.
I said you were born in Rochdale, but your surname sort of implies a history of immigration, and I was just wondering whether you had any influences in your music, whether, say, music from your father influenced you when you were younger as well.
Well, both my parents came from Europe just after the war, the Second World War, and found a great welcome here. And we grew up in Rochdale and then Stockport, but there was music in the house always, because they both loved music, and I learned to play the violin from about 6 years old. So we would go. They took me to see live shows. They took me to the cinema. They were kind of quite advanced in that way, you know, because perhaps then people didn't do that with children, but my parents did. I was taken to the opera when I was 5 and 6 and 7 years old.
And was there a European influence then with their music tastes, which sort of influenced you more than, say, as well as having the Beatles and what was British pop at the time? Did you have sort of a European influence? Like I know your dad was from Czechoslovakia, your mum from Germany. Were any of those artists from those countries being played when you were growing up?
Well, yeah, my mum loved Marlena, of course, and my dad was a big fan of Smetana and Dvorak, so we had all of that. But for the most part, what we had on in the house were things like Nat King Cole and South Pacific and musicals. They kind of loved everything.
Let's hear the first song tonight then, and it's, to be honest, it's one of my favourites from this album. It's Something and the Long and Winding Road.
Something in the way he moves attracts me like no other lover. Something in the way he woos me. I don't want to leave him now. You know I believe in how. Somewhere in his smile he knows that I don't need no way. Lead me back to the long, winding road.
Hello, good evening. You're listening to Monday Nights, Monday Matters with me, Jason McCrossan. I've got Barb Jungr on the phone. She's calling in from Germany this evening, which I'm very grateful for. She's currently out promoting and performing her latest album, which is called Come Together, and it's an arrangement of Beatles songs that she's done with the acclaimed arranger and pianist John McDaniel. And as I said, that is one of my favourite songs from the album, and there's a fantastic end to that piece. And to be honest, as someone who loves hearing the piano being played, it is a magical sound.
Yes, I mean, we have to give a shout out to John, of course, is absolutely brilliant. He's a brilliant player, and he's a superb musician, just absolutely superb. But the mix of the album was done by Christoph Bracher in London, and Christoph did such a wonderful job of making everything we did in the studio sound as though we're beside you in the room, which is a wonderful thing. John, every time John sits down, John doesn't have any music. He just sits at the piano with the arrangements as they come to him in his head every night. So he can respond completely to all of my changes and all of my harmonic and rhythmic patterns. It's just really alive, it's wonderful, and I love working with him. He's a great musician.
And what was the recording process like for you then? I imagine that in order to get that feeling that comes through the record, you had to record these songs in their entirety.
Yes, no, we did every piece, playing and singing together, and we recorded it in 2 days.
You said how you recorded the album in London, and it was the 1970s that you first moved to London as a singer, and I sort of would be really interested to know, what was it like, London in the 1970s, for a young girl just starting out on her career?
Actually, it was really hard work, because of course there was the tail end of glam rock. So you'd go to auditions. I'd go to auditions, and there'd be this bunch of, kind of New York doll type guys sitting about with very, very, very thin legs and pink leather trousers, and playing kind of rock music, and I'd trump in. And then punk started, and that was fantastic. And so I felt really I sort of felt a bit blessed, I suppose, that I was in London when punk happened. And my boyfriend was a punk drummer, and subsequently my husband. And it was just a great time to be in London and to be alive and to be young. It was fabulous. And then, of course, at the tail end of punk came the alternative cabaret circuit, and that's where I call that my university. That was where I learned everything. We were playing every single night, sometimes 2 and 3 times a night, the Three Courgettes and then Younger and Parker. You could just play all the time, and it really made you. And you would walk onto a stage and you'd have to grab people, you had to make them listen, because there were 5 other acts on and 4 of them would be comedians, and you really had to work, you really had to learn your craft.
And I suppose, it was just so different, wasn't it? Because, for a start, people would be smoking, and the atmosphere, was it just completely different back then?
Yes, it's funny you should say that. I remember very well playing at Ronnie Scott's and the 606, both kind of legendary London jazz clubs when there was still smoking. And you would come home, because particularly Ronnie Scott's, you did 2 shows Friday and 2 shows Saturday. And by the time you got home on Saturday night, you couldn't speak. Your voice was thick with it.
Next song then, Barb. And this is another up-tempo number. It's Getting Better and Here, There and Everywhere. And before we actually hear that track, Barb, I just wanted to get a sense from you, the idea behind this album. Whose idea was it? You said how much you loved the Beatles growing up in Rochdale. So was this album a long time in the making?
Well, it was John, actually, because I worked with him in Connecticut, where he had organised a gala performance, and he'd arranged In My Life for me, and it was beautiful, and I just thought it was the most gorgeous arrangement. So when he said, do you fancy doing something together? I thought, why not the Beatles? And it came out of my mouth without I didn't know I was going to say that, because I'd steer clear of them, because as somebody pointed out, they're in our cultural furniture. So it feels very, very hard. But You know, last night we played in Dobcross, and we came to the final song in the show is In My Life, and the entire audience, without my asking them to, just joined in, and it was beautiful and very moving, and I think that's the depth of connection people have to the material.
Okay, here we are, Getting Better, Here, There and Everywhere.
Get mad at my school. The teachers who taught me weren't cool. You're holding me down, turning me round, filling me up with your rules. I've got to admit it's getting better, a little better all the time. I have to admit it's getting better, a little better since you've been mine. To be angry young man, me hiding my head in the sand. You gave me the word, I finally heard. I'm doing the best that I can. I've got to admit it's getting better, a little better all the time. I have to admit it's getting better, a little better since you've been mine. Getting so much better all the time. It's getting better all the time. Better, better, better. It's getting better all the time. Better, I will be there and everywhere, here, there and everywhere, because it's getting better all the time.
Good evening, it is Monday nights, Monday Matters here on 106.9 SFM. My guest tonight is the acclaimed jazz and cabaret singer Barb Jungr, who is calling in from Germany this evening. We just heard another great song from a new album she's got out at the moment. It's called Come Together. It's an arrangement of Beatles songs as she works with the acclaimed arranger and pianist John McDaniel. And fans will already know that she's performing to a sold-out audience at Faversham, the Assembly rooms, this coming Friday. There are still tickets available to her performance in Deal at the Astor Theatre. And we'll find out how to get a hold of those tickets later on. I love the change of tempo in that song, from the getting better to then the slower Here, There and Everywhere. Again, the musical arrangement, that was John, wasn't it?
Well, we sit at the piano together. I mean, John obviously does the piano parts, and Nick obviously, you know, the harmonisations are his. But the way we structure and the feel of the songs and the way we wish to link ideas and themes is the two of us.
And when you're on stage and you're performing these songs, you had said earlier how at one point some people will join in and start singing the songs as well. Do you have any favourite songs in amongst that album that you get really excited about just before you're about to play, that set your hairs tingling because you just want to share it with the audience?
You know, I think I feel that about every single one, because if you think about the wealth of material that the Beatles gave us, that all of them, that's, you know, Harrison, Lennon and McCartney and indeed Starr, if you think about that entire repertoire, we picked our favourite things. And funnily, when we started working on it, we both had a list, and our lists were 90% the same.
And was that list something that you had been working on, even if subconsciously, over the years? The engines at the back of your mind would be crunching away as you were listening to a song, thinking, oh yeah, I could do that, and oh, that would be nice if I did this.
No, I mean, I had done a couple of Beatles songs in the time, but as a body of work, I'd sort of steered clear of it because of the DNA thing, because it's